So in this session, I am going to discuss about the world economic development, factors in economic development, measures of economic development, economic growth versus development, problems of economic development. To analyze a country's economic development, geographers utilize economic indicators such as the entire worth of goods and services generated by a country in a year, which is known as the gross domestic product (GDP). The annual increase in GDP, gross national product, GDP per capita or GNP per capita is referred to as economic growth. Knowledge-based, credit-based, saving-based, resource oil rich-based and ethnic religiously affected economic growth trends were identified. The knowledge-based economy was discovered to be the most prevalent economic growth pattern, followed by trade-based economy. Whatever we are seeing development today is not a sudden development. It happened in stages as per Rostov economic development model. So as per Rostov, there are 5 stages of development that a country passes through. These stages are traditional society dominated by agricultural and religion, preconditions for takeoff, small progress of the middle class. Third stage is known as the takeoff stage, in which the industries are being set up in some regions. Fourth stage is known as drive to maturity, which is known as fully industrialized. And the next stage is known as a stage of mass consumption. This is also known as the self-reliance and move to automation. We will discuss later in details about the modes in the models, theories or sections. I have also described earlier about the Rostov model. The above 5 stages of Rostov is very true in the present world. Some countries like Sudan and Somalia are in the first stage, and countries like Japan and USA are in the stage 5. The reason behind this development disparity in the world can have many factors. So let me discuss about the problems in economic development. There are many problems in economic development, such as historical, demographic, environment, political, economic and technological or innovations. The first factor is historical factor. Some culture is against the materialism. For example, even today, tribal people in India did not believe in a materialistic society. Colonial loot is also a factor behind the backwardness of the country. For example, in India, it happened so. The second factor is demographic. Skilled labor required for industries, low quality of education and health, overpopulation, immigration also hindered the development progress. The third major important factor is environment. Climate change is costing huge to low-lying countries such as Indonesia. Disaster-prone areas such as the coastal areas of Orissa also lacking in development. Fourth factor is political. Political stability is needed for the development of a country. Due to political instability, such as countries in Afghanistan, Sudan, Syria, development, we can say it has stopped. Important factor is the economic factor. Low savings, low per capita income and poverty hinders capital formation and delayed economic growth. Another important factor which is very relevant in current era is innovation and technological advancement. Israel and Japan are the best example for this. Despite resource scarcity, they are now developed due to technological advancement. Israel invented drip irrigation and cheap desalination technology. Environmental factors are not able to limit the agricultural growth of Israel. Let me take you to the measurement of economic development. So as per the measures of economies, there are 2 types of tool. One is quantitative tool and another is qualitative tool. Quantitative tool is basically measurement of quantitative techniques in which we take the numerical value such as GDP, GNP and NNP, defense expenditure, innovation and technological development. Whereas in qualitative tool, we measure the qualitative aspects such as human development index, happiness index, per capita income and expenditure, per capita doctor, teacher, judges, police availability, what is the birth rate, sex ratio and death rate in the country. These comes under this category. Today, the level of development of countries is estimated by per capita income. Based on per capita income, the nature of the economic model and sectoral contribution in GDP of the countries can be divided into the following category. World economy studies, all the countries of the world are divided into two categories, developed and not developed countries. The underdeveloped countries are industrial agriculture economic, agriculture dominant economic and centralized planned economies. So, let me take you to the developed countries. There are high per capita income and expenditure, high level of living standard, high urbanization, contribution of industry and service sector in GDP is more than 90%. The large share in the world trade both in import and export. Now, let me discuss about the undeveloped countries. They are moving from agriculture sector, dominance to industries and services, poor to middle class to the higher class, very small share in the world trade. Economics is the policies and factors which would lead to a profit of a particular organization setup such as industrial input cost, output taxation, etc. Whereas economic geography, this deals with the factors which determine why a particular industry or organizational setup is located at a certain place. It deals with the spatial location of a particular industries. Economic geography is concerned with how many interacts with the environment for economic benefits. It's a discipline which is based on the spatial pattern of the resources, man's economic activity and his interaction with the given environment. There are three major approaches. The one is empirical approach. It is based on direct observation of what man is doing at a particular place. It is not very much in air nowadays. Compared to that, the second approach is known as the functional approach. In this approach, interaction between natural resources and man is studied. It answers the question who gets what, where and how. And the third approach is the environmental deterministic approach. It states that man's economic activity has been determined by natural environment and economic level is the manifestation of physical conditioning. The theory has become obsolete due to technological advancement. Man has responded to the vagaries of nature. There are four major branches in economic geography such as agriculture geography, industrial geography, transport geography and development geography. The focus of geographers has now been shifted from exploitation of resources to geography for human welfare. Economic geography has its origin in late 19th century, which emphasized the spatial location of commodities and raw material and related these locations to physical geography and the development of transport networks. Commercial geography dominated until the mid-20th century and was mostly factually based and took place with a broader framework of regional geography. Since the 1950s, predominantly descriptive geography has given way to one focused more on economic theories. Initially, in the new emerging economies geography, these theories were mainly derived from neoclassical economies and assumed that the market system was a rational and efficient distributor of resources and wealth. The political, social and the cultural aspects were also considered and problems associated with resources and wealth distribution were ignored. So, these were the critique. These models did not, however, accurately reflect the complexities of the real world, and economic geographers after the 1960s began to adopt theories that allowed them to focus upon the social consequences of economic actions. The theories of Karl Marx, which suggested that the shape of society was closely tied to the organization of production, were particularly influenced not just in economic geography but in human geography generally, where they formed the basis of what comes to be known as the radical geography. Economic relationships are not static. and with time it changes, just like the word of globalization. For example, tiger economies of Pacific Rim, Shell Oil Company in Niger Delta region in Nigeria. At a regional scale, economic geographers have always been concerned to analyze the importance of concentration of particular industries and land uses in certain regions. The economies of highly industrialized countries have become largely consumer-based, and increasing attention is now being given by economic geographers to the pattern of consumption as well as production. Another recent theme has been the sustainability of particular economic activity. Over the past 20 years, economic geography in all its form has been more critical and varied and more concerned with detailing the uneven distribution of wealth and well-being. A broad shift in concern can be identified from the geography of resource exploitation to geography of human welfare in all parts of the world. Growth is a quantitative term which has a materialistic connotations, whereas it is calculated on the basis of GDP, GNP, NNP, etc., and the indices are based on the economic values such as production, inputs, output, import, export, and monetary values. Leads to the capitalist society. It enhances the set of disparity as after result of concentration of wealth in few hands, which leads to regional disparity, interpersonal disparity, etc. The wave of growth is directed toward the capitalist region. It is a temporal concept, and vertical analysis of the society is on the basis, for example, the sections, caste, etc. Now, what do you mean by development? Development is a qualitative term which has the humanistic connotations. It is measured by human and social indexes like per capita consumption, sex ratio, literacy rate, the standard of living, life expectancy, mortality rate, HDI, etc. This leads to a socialistic and welfare society. It brings equilibrium over the landscape as it is based on the distributive justice. Waves of growth is directed towards the poorer region. It is a spatial concept and is based on the historical analysis. However, economic growth and development can't be segregated. One is means while the other is goal end. Without economic growth, development is not possible. Economic impulses are required to trigger development fumes. Economic growth is the prerequisite to development process, and constant growth process can only augment the ways of development over the landscape, which can mitigate the disparities. Please refer to this particular table which shows the indexes of measurement of economic development. There are three criteria. One is economic, second is demographic, and the third is social. Factors such as GDP, GNP, NNP, PCI, growth rate, balance of trade, FDI, forex, 𝗶𝗶, these are the factors of economic development, whereas indexes of measurement of demographic is population density, mortality, IMR and MMR. When it comes to social measurement, then factors such as literacy, life expectancy, dependency ratio, standard of living, per capita doctor availability and per capita teacher availability, these types of factors are considered for measurement purposes. It refers to the qualitative and quantitative changes in the economy. It involves multiple areas including the development of human capital, environment, sustainability, social inclusion, health, safety, literacy, and other initiatives. Economic development includes the economic growth as well as social emancipation of people based on natural right and right to have full growth of persona. In general, the world has been classified into 4 economic regions. The first one is capitalist commercial economy. In this, Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, Singapore, etc. Industrial commercial economy, USA, Japan, UK, Germany, etc. These are part of this. Industrial agrarian economy, South America countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Southeastern Asian countries, France, these are part of such categorization. And another one is agricultural rural countries, mainly which belongs to Africa, such as Cambodia, Laos and socialist countries So, the above decision can also be done on the basis of developed and developing and least developed countries. So, based on the economic development, world has been divided into North and South. North, these are commercial economies, capitalist technology based, industrialized and urbanized. They capture almost 90% of the world trade. India's share is less than 1% of the international trade. You should know about it. South, these countries are producer of raw material, impoverished and have high population density, poor gross domestic product, per capita income and low standard of living. At meso level, the economies can be divided into developed economies, quasi-developed economies such as South America, Russia, China, Brazil, Asian tigers. I am sure that you may be knowing about Asian tigers. These are Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia. Third category is developing, fourth is underdeveloped and fifth is socialist. At regional scale, the world economies can be divided into Anglo-America, in which USA and Canada jointly this will come. These areas are resources rich south as iron ore, coal and petroleum in USA, tin, fishing in Canada, etc. These countries are characterized by high level of development, high standard of living, good economic conditions, high technology, etc. They have high demographic and social indexes such as life expectancy, sex ratios. Since human development in these countries is high, it leads to high technological and economic development which are compatible with each other. Though there are some areas in USA where human development is high but not economic development and vice versa due to racism. The events of environment and social hazards such as class differentiation, discriminations, etc. So, these are the social factors. Now, second one is Latin America. It consists of Mexico, Central America and Caribbean islands. It can be divided into two groups. One is quasi-development like Mexico and developing like countries of Central America and Caribbean islands. And another one is South America. The countries of South America is both industrialized, not as high as Anglo-America, and agrarian in nature. The per capita income of Brazil is $8,000 and of Chile is $20,000. South American society is divided into caste system based on racial texture such as mestizos, European in white plus red Indian, Moltos, these are Europeans white plus black, and another one is Zambos, that is red Indian plus black. Human development and economic development both are in transitional stage. The discrimination against mulattoes and Zambos is, however, in humanitarian. Concentration of wealth is in few capitalist hand and mestizos occupy 90% of the natural resources. It includes Egypt, Sudan, Tunisia and Libya, which are Islamic nations. Most of these countries have petroleum, economic development is greater, but human development is lacking. The per capita income of Tunisia is $12,000, Egypt is $6,000 and Libya is $6,000. Now, let me take you to the Meso-Africa. It includes the countries of Middle Africa such as Congo, DRC, Uganda, Rwanda, Chad, Malawi, etc. These countries are marked by abundance of natural resources, but due to low technology, their exploitation is low. There is lack of industries in African countries. Eastern Africa. Now, what is the status of Eastern Africa? These include Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia. These are one of the most poorest countries of the world. Now, let me take you to the Western Africa. The countries of Western Africa includes Guyana, Africa, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria. These are developing in nature. They are full of natural resources but are tribal economies. And another categorization is the South Central Africa. In the South Central Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe and Namibia. These are the countries which comes, they are developing or quasi-developed countries. The economic development is high, but human development is low, since they are dominated by religious, lack of medical facilities and traditional societies. They are petrodollar economies. Per capita income of Saudi Arabia is $23,000, Kuwait is $45,000, Iraq is 8,000 to 9,000. Now let me take you to the Southeast Asia. These countries include Asian tigers, as I mentioned before also, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia. These 4 countries are known as the Asian tigers. They are multicultural regions of the world. And now the most important category is South Asia. Why is that South Asia? Because the countries of South Asia includes India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. Now let me take you to the Far East. It includes Japan, Korea, China, etc. Per capita income of Japan is $35,000 and of China is $6,000. The factors which are responsible for the economic development of a given region, the physical factors in which climate, temperature, rainfall, these are the important parameters. Regions with extreme climate are underdeveloped, like African nations, whereas regions with conducive climate are developed, such as USA. Second is relief structure and topography. The mountainous areas are less developed than plain due to effect of relief structure and topography, soil fertility, land capability and productivity. Regions with fertile soil and high land capability will be more developed than regions lacking them. For example, prairies are more developed than sub-Sahara Africa. Third important component is drainage and hydrology. Areas with high water availability will be more developed, such as Uttarakhand is less developed due to poor hydrology. Nile Valley is more developed due to high water availability. Accessibility and location is also one among the factors. Port areas are usually developed due to high accessibility. For example, Singapore, Mumbai, these are more developed because of the high accessibility. Apart from that, natural resources plays a major important role. Areas with high natural resources is developed provided they have efficient technological system to harness them. For example, USA. And of course, demographic factor is a major measurement. It includes factors like mortality rate, sex ratio, dependency ratio, wage rate, employment rate. So these are the different factors of demographic. And now let me discuss little bit about the environmental factor. It includes factors like flood, drought, climate change, ozone depletion. For example, Odisha is less developed than Mumbai due to more events of environmental hazards. Another factor is technological factor. It is very important factor in the development of a nation. For example, Japan, even after having low natural resources, it is developed country due to very high level of technology. On the other hand, Brazil, through highly endowed with natural resources, lacks technology and is a developing nation. Another factor is the dynamic factor. It includes factors such as industrialization, urbanization, government policies, import, export, role of international institution. Social factors: casteism, regionalism, literacy, education, food crisis, poverty and gender biasness, attitude of people and their work ethos. For example, enterprising nature of Gujaratis, Jains, Marwaris result in development of that area. Another important factor is the historical factor. Early center of development has become underdeveloped now due to saturation of development in those regions. Some regions are developed due to their historical inertia of development. For example, Chennai was developed by British. As it is said widely that plains invite civilization, mountains push them away and deserts denies them coast augment. So any country must have job possibility for its resident, and its government must be able to earn cash in order to provide services. Economic development, when done correctly, helps a community retain and grow job and investment. Our local governments leverage the tax base established by the development and investment to support services such as fire, senior services, park, recreation, library services and so on.